Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about on this Monday afternoon. First and foremost, let's talk about the Democratic Party's lackluster support of black candidates. We'll talk about some of the trials of Mandela Barnes and so many other candidates that ran for national office. We'll have that conversation. Also, I got to bring you up in another development in the Tyree Nichols case. Now, the Memphis Fire Department has defended the EMTs that got on scene and who didn't really take action and didn't leave the scene for 27 minutes. I'll share with you what the Memphis Fire Department had to say about that. Also, can we talk a little bit about sports? I'm going to check in with my guy Scotty with Oxford TV, talk about the Super Bowl, talk about this colorism that I've seen on social media among black folks, man. It was crazy and so much more. And then later, we got to bring you an update on how College Board has now gone out against Governor Ron DeSantis and how they responded to him, how they have apologized, and so much more around this whole controversy about advanced placement African-American studies. So we'll have those conversations. And of course, we want to hear from you. So make sure you stay tuned. A whole lot to get through on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. I am very, very excited about the discussions we got planned for you today. Folks, happy Monday. And if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, happy Super Bowl champs to the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce and company definitely put in some work. But big shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles by my man Jalen Hurts. And the Eagles, who put in a valiant effort, but just could not pull it out. Oh, man, it was a nail biter, but it was a great game. And, of course, we'll talk about all the details with that in a little bit later. But, folks, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about Democratic Party, how black candidates around the country are starting to feel left out and not as invested by the Democratic Party, even though the party often claims that it is moving in a more progressive direction, a direction that will that impact the interests of African Americans. And I'm going to be bringing my brother in, Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland African American Studies Department, to share his insight about what we're seeing among the Democratic Party and their lackluster support of black candidates. Dr. Jason Nichols, good to have you, brother. How you feeling this morning or this afternoon?
Yeah, now I'm feeling good. I'm feeling blessed. Happy to be here back on the culture with the culture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, bro. Absolutely, absolutely. Who did you go for the Super Bowl, Doc?
I was kind of neutral and agnostic. I picked Philly because I lived in Philly. For my early childhood was spent in West Philadelphia. So I went for the Eagles. But it was one of those Super Bowls where I just wanted to see a good game, and I certainly did. I love Jalen Hurts. I love his story. He's like the ultimate comeback story. So it would have been nice to see him win a Super Bowl. But, I believe Patrick Mahomes also has, a claim that to potentially be able to surpass Tom Brady and be the great one and be the GOAT, and I'm excited to see what happens. I'm one of those people, particularly when it comes to GOATs, I don't believe there is one GOAT in a team sport. I think that doesn't make sense. I think team sport, like you can't compare Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to Michael Jordan. You know what I mean?
Right. They were all GOATs. They were all GOATs.
Exactly.
They were all GOATs, right? You're right.
I'm looking at, but at the quarterback position, Patrick Mahomes, if they're able to keep that team together and Travis Kelce is able to stay healthy for a couple more years, they may have another one or two Super Bowls in them.
I think so. And Eagles, same thing with the Eagles. Same thing with the Eagles. A lot of teams, they like disband and they break up in teams, and I don't understand it. But the one thing you talk about Tom Brady, one thing that we saw with Belichick and the Patriots is they made an effort to, at least as much as they can, to keep the teams together so they can go for that 2, 3, 4 year run, getting up to the playoffs, getting to the championship, conference championships, and then getting to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just what you got to do. So, like, to your point, also, I like that view. It's a team sport. It's a team sport. So, you got some great ones that shine, but at the end of the day, every man is essential. And so it was definitely a Super Bowl for the history books in so many ways. But we want to talk about politics a little bit here with you this morning. I keep saying this morning, man. This afternoon, boy. I'm still yesterday, brother. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Democratic Party. There was a story that ran in Politico that I thought was quite interesting, and this is a conversation I think that a lot of people have been having, Doc, outside of the mainstream, right? And it's interesting that Politico put this as like one of their top stories, where Black candidates are starting to decry that the Democratic Party is not there for them. And look at this, folks. Black candidates keep losing winnable races and say the Democratic Party may be why. They raised boatloads of money, but they were outgunned by GOP outside organizations. And it comes down to the fact that they don't have access to money.
Right.
Or they're not getting the marketing machine of the Democratic Party behind their elections and behind their campaigns, and they're being just outgunned. They're being outmarketed by their GOP opposition. So I want to share with folks what this piece said, because this is very interesting. And then, Doc, I want to hear from you. And folks, I want y'all to join me in a conversation. Post your thoughts in the chat, and we can have a discussion about this. But here's what this piece said, and I think this is important. They said, while there are numerous reasons why none of the Black candidates trying to flip seats won, they gravitated to a common theme. And take a look at this, folks. They gravitated to a common theme, one that's more personal than a typical after-action campaign report. Black candidates needed more trust, and with it, funding from the Democratic Party's infrastructure. I'm looking at the second paragraph now. Take a look, folks. It says, hindsight is always 20/20, and there's no doubt that Sherry Beasley and Val Demings were in tough races, but given the right investment, they both could have won. And this comes from Representative Barbara Lee, a California Democrat. She's actually running for Senate here in the state of California. She's the chair emeritus of the Congressional Black Caucus, referencing the two Democratic Black women who ran for Senate in North Carolina and Florida. So she said that they could have won. She also said that she may be speaking out of self-interest. She told colleagues that she plans to run for the Senate. She has made that official. And in Demings' case, it's unclear how more funding could have overcome a decisive 16-point loss, but her analysis overall of the 2022 results was echoed by 10 elected officials, strategists, and campaign operatives who spoke to Politico. They don't just see the issue as one of a campaign money, but rather of Black candidates getting the same institutional support as their white peers. Generally speaking, what I've seen since I've gotten here is not enough Black unity across the country from a political perspective, and not a strong enough Black political infrastructure to support Black candidates across the country. Now, this comes from Representative Jamal Bowman, Democrat out of New York. He's Black. He said, that's something very concerning to me and something I want to use my voice and platform to help build going forward. Not enough Black unity and not a strong enough Black political infrastructure to support Black candidates in light of the Democratic Party's lackluster support. Dr. Nichols, my brother, what do you make of this? Is this, from your vantage point, do you see this being the problem?
I think it's a problem. I think Sherry Beasley could have won that race in North Carolina. I mean, to me, that was a toss-up. I think Mandela Barnes could have won. And again, we'll go back to what Rob Shindell said about, suppressing 37,000 Black votes. Mandela Barnes lost by under, I think it was around 100,000 votes. So I think that there's definitely an argument to be made there. I do think that in certain situations, we have seen the Democrats invest in races that they thought were winnable, that they had a lot of confidence in, like in Georgia, the Senate race in Georgia, with, they knew that they could beat Herschel Walker in that race, and that Raphael Warnock was probably going to be able to pull that out. And I think they invested in that very, heavily. But I don't think Val Demings, honestly, I think pouring more money into Val Demings' race would have been a mistake. And I know there are some brothers and sisters out there that are going to be like, yo, how could you say that? How could you not support the sister? I love Val Demings. I think Val Demings was an amazing candidate, but Florida is just in a different place right now. It's a different kind of state, and the demographics are changing. You have a lot of elderly, white, Midwesterners moving into Florida, and conservative people who don't like taxes from New York moving into Florida. And Florida's demographics are changing to the point where it's not that razor-thin battleground state that we all remember from 2000 and 2004. So I think pouring more money into Val Demings' race, there's a reason why two leading GOP candidates live in Florida. I think that would have not been the right investment. But Mandela Barnes, imagine if Mandela Barnes got the kind of support that John Fetterman got. I think that would have been, that may have been, the race right there, and would have expanded the lead in the Senate. Now we get down into congressional races. I think Black people always need more support and more money. And they spent money trying to prop up Trump candidates. And you could argue that it worked in some cases, but they actually used their resources to prop up, who they thought were bad candidates, rather than investing in some Black candidates. And I think that was a misuse, of the funds that they had available. And I hope that moving forward, that the Democratic Party listens to what's being stated here, and that we Black people take it back to 1972 and start organizing and developing our own political infrastructure, as Jamal Bowman stated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue the conversation with Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland. And folks, I want to hear from you. What do you make of this? The Democrats are lackluster support of Black candidates. What do you make of Representative Jamal Bowman saying that there needs to be enough Black unity in a political space and a Black political infrastructure? What do you think of this? Post your comments in our chat section as we're streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook, on blackstarnetwork.com. And of course, make sure y'all stay tuned to us on Amazon News. Stay tuned. We got a lot to get to. It's right here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about the latest allegation against the Democratic Party, how some black candidates feel like the Democratic Party, the institution of the Democratic Party, has shown lackluster investment for black candidates. Now, this conversation comes out of a story from Politico, but it also comes out of a larger conversation how black candidates feel like they're often disregarded, even though we are a major voting bloc within the Democratic Party. What's your take on this, folks? Post your comments in our chat section, streaming on live right now on YouTube, Facebook, Black Star Network, and of course, make sure you stay tuned to us on Amazon News. I've been talking to my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland, African American Studies Department, to get his take on this. So I think we can all agree that the level of support that we have seen for other candidates is not quite as strong as what we're saying for black candidates in this go around. And the crazy part about this, Doc, is that, for us as constituents, as we have these conversations, I remember talking about Mandela Barnes and just all of these candidates, Val Demings, Sherry Beasley. We talked about our sister out of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, and all of those things. Like we as a people and as a voting bloc in this country, we pump them up, right? We constantly put their names out there, but then at the end of the day, that's among us. You know what I'm saying? There is still, it's like an artist, a music artist, right? That artist might be a big deal to a certain demographic, a certain fan base, but the artist might not have a quote unquote national appeal. And that's just where I see this whole political thing, that the Democratic Party, they're probably doing a lot of and I'm just assuming here, I'm not part of the party in the sense of knowing privy all of the business, but it just seems like the metrics that they use to determine if a candidate is going to be successful in an election is not consistent with how we see it. And I'm wondering, does it need to change to lean more towards our interests? Or do they know something more than that we may not know? Because we could talk all day. We're talking heads, right? We could talk all day about this stuff. Oh, what this candidate should be doing, what they should be saying, how they should, run their campaigns. But at the end of the day, that party is we got our interests. We're trying to figure out who's winning. And it's just not work. It's not in alignment with one another.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Democratic Party, of course, has their internal polling, and that's why certain candidates aren't getting the support that others are, and some people they try to make into national stars, and others don't. I do think that there is others they don't. I do think that there is some sort of I do think that race does in some ways play a role in that. And that's something that needs to be addressed. But one of the things, if we want Black folks to win statewide races, a lot of it is going to have to be major, ridiculous turnout from Black folks. You know what I mean? That's just a fact. Could we have won in Louisiana, with Brother Chambers? Possibly, what I mean? But it would have taken major turnout.
Right.
The brother over in Arkansas who ran for governor, it would have taken every eligible Black person to vote. And so we can say that that's impossible, or we can try to make it happen. And I think what we could do as a people is to 100% look at what the people and the brothers and sisters did in Georgia. You know what I mean? They're organizing down in Georgia. Now, granted, I'm a little more privy to what's going on in Georgia than I am to what's going on in Arkansas, Louisiana. But they had their feet on the ground in rural areas where the Democratic Party usually ignores. The Democratic Party is very short-sighted. They think, okay, let's just get everybody in Metro Atlanta to turn out, and not realizing that there are rural Black folks. There are Black folks all over the state. And it was those organizations that Black folks formed that were not tied to the party. They went out and got Raphael Warnock elected because they went to those little areas and got people that may not have cast a ballot before, or were first-time voters, or registered new Black voters. They were the ones who did that. And we've got to build that infrastructure, do that everywhere in the country if we want to start getting, the kind of representation that we need.
Do you think that, do you agree with Representative Jamal Bowman's assertion that we just don't have Black unity in the political space?
So I'm not sure what he means by that. Like what in terms of Black unity, I think Black people are unified on the things that they're concerned about. I think Black people are absolutely unified that we want police reform, that we want voting issues. We want, to deal with environmental racism. We are pretty unified on that. I mean, there's some controversial topics, maybe reparations or something, where you'll see a little bit of divide. But for the most part, Black people, in terms of a Black agenda, are 100% unified.
And see, here's the part about that statement that I'm thinking about, bro, is if we had the Black unity that he was saying that we need to have, if we had a Black and political infrastructure that he said that we should have, then why keep running on the Democratic ticket? I mean, yeah, granted, they're the bigger party, all of that stuff. You got a two-party system. But if we had those key elements already in a pot, ready for the, to be mixed in, and all we needed was just some folks to step up, then we could really start having a very serious conversation around running in an independent way, right? Even though we may not win the first couple of elections, but you still got to build the groundwork, right? You know what I'm saying? The same way you've seen in other different facets of the Republican Party, whether it's coming from the Tea Party or the conservative movement or all of these things. Like the same thing can still exist with the Democratic Party, particularly with Black folks, right? Like if we had a Black political infrastructure that was set up in a Black unity, Black, and we were all on the same page, and we getting snubbed by the Democratic Party, then what's stopping us then from saying, you know what, we're gonna be like LeBron and take our talents elsewhere?
Well, I think on particularly on a local level, running races outside of the Democratic establishment, or not feeling like you have to run as a Democrat, I think is actually a good idea. Malcolm X.
I think, hey, bro, Doc, we got to get out of this fear that if we run outside, we'll lose. Okay, so what? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, we'll lose. But you can't, like, we can run an independent course, right, and still be a part of the Democratic Party until the independent course becomes as strong. You know what I mean? But you got to start somewhere. Like, I don't like for us to be running from or operating in a space of political fear. Like, oh my gosh, we might lose. Like, come on, let's be real. Every race that a Democrat has won, we have not gotten what we wanted from that candidate or from that office. Mm-hmm. So it's like, at what point do you just step out there on faith and be like, look, let's see what happened? I mean, the country is ripe for a political revolution. Ripe. Mm-hmm. Black, white, Asian, Latino, whoever you talk to, everybody is tired of the same two-party system, right? That is not reflective of where we are in terms of our interests, our racial interests, our ethnic interests, all of that stuff. So we kind of like, when I keep hearing like, no, we need to just stay the course. We've been staying the course for 50 years.
Right. So here's the thing, why that hasn't happened. Number one, it's because the same thing that people were talking about that Barbara Lee was talking about. And I respect Barbara Lee 100%, but I think it is that people want the institutional support. Black people don't have the wealth, that it takes to win statewide elections. Like, without, some of the support that can come from Democrats and, from that kind of an apparatus. So I think part of it is the institutional support that you can get from Democrats that really isn't in the Black community. You know what I mean? Like it's the wealth isn't there. The other thing is it's a numbers game. If you make it, particularly outside of a local context, if you want to win a statewide election as, the Black party, it's going to be really difficult. What you're going to get is Republicans in 42 out of 50 states. The reason being because if you do that, the numbers, the blackest state in the nation is Mississippi.
Right.
So if you split the Mississippi vote between the Democratic vote and black folks voting for a black, a black candidate, black agenda, all of that, then you pretty much get Republicans anyway, but you're going to be even more watered down perhaps. So I think people fear that. I'm not saying that's a good fear. I think we do need to at least be bolder and have real, look at some bold ways. That was the whole thing about 1972. It was like, that was the decision. Are we going to make a black political party?
Absolutely.
As a 10% of the population.
And this is the best time to do it.
Right. Well, see, here's the thing. The idea in 1972, while the Republican Party was still going through their transition, right? It was a transition period. Everyone says, the flip, the Southern strategy, Goldwater, all of that. That was a transition period. So that was a perfect time to say, we are going to vote as a special interest. Here's the black agenda. How many points are you going to take? And, it could be a 15-point agenda, and Republicans could say, I'll take 9. Democrats could say, I'll take 11. And then you vote with Democrats or vice versa. Now it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a lot different.
I think Republicans are really entrenched in the lane that they're going, and they think just by being contrarian, they'll get a couple of black votes. Democrats are also entrenched in what they're doing, and they think, hey, we'll put on some kente cloth and kneel in the rotunda, and that'll be a good photo op for black folks, without actually accomplishing anything. I also think that there have been some things that have been accomplished for black folks. I wouldn't necessarily say that.
I agree with you. I agree with you, bro. I'm not saying that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just saying that we got to look at the moment that we're in, the time that we're in. And if we're not getting the support, like this is a sign that we need to figure out an alternative strategy, right? Mm-hmm. And we can use this as leverage. We can use this moment as leverage and be like, look, we've been riding with the Democratic Party. We put the president, we put a few number of presidents in office. We're not getting the support. We're not getting the support that we need, and at the result of that, we're looking to take our talents elsewhere. Now, here's the final thing. And gotta come to them like that, because I know white candidates of the Democratic Party yelling and screaming, hooping, hollering, and stomping when they don't get the money and the support. And the Democratic Party submits and give them the support. Black candidates, Conscious Thought, very quickly, you made this point, Conscious Thought. You said you've been receiving numerous emails from the Charles Booker campaign in Kentucky, the Mandela Barnes campaign in Wisconsin, seeking funds to close deficits and debts from respective campaigns for office. People still trying to cover up that, still trying to pay for debts and still trying to pay for the campaigns and all of that. And that's sad that the Democratic Party may be like, well, and I mean, we don't know all of the ins and outs of it, but it's just the fact that, this is February. You still getting emails about campaigns. It just puts us in a crazy situation. We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's have one more segment around this and then see where we can go from here. Folks, stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the Democrats' lackluster support of Black candidates. This is coming from a number of candidates, including Mandela Barnes and others, who are saying that the institutional support that we often see with white Democratic candidates is much higher than what we've been seeing with Black candidates. And we're talking about the implications of it. And more importantly, where does this leave the Black voter? We've been checking in with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols from the University of Maryland. And of course, you, Doc, I want to bring you back into the frame because I want to take some comments from my crew here to talk about this. A lot of people are seeing this. Again, this is not a new conversation. This has been a conversation that's been happening for years. As far as I can remember, Doc, as far as I've been studying politics, this has been a conversation that's been happening for years where we're not seeing the level of institutional support. Viable candidates, candidates that could, as Politico said, win winnable races, but they just don't have the extra push to take them across the finish line. They just don't have the extra type of manpower, the extra institutional support that they need. So I think this is something that we should be talking about, especially now, because we got to figure out what's going to be the strategy here for 2024. That's around the corner. This is already 2023. So if the Democrats either they're going to shape up, or I think Black voters, we're going to have to make some hard decisions about our involvement in the presidential election. Shalinda checked in. You said the funding from the Democratic Party was most definitely lacking for melanated candidates. We've seen that across the board. Yeah, absolutely. Janelle, you checked in and said Gary Chambers Jr.'s cried foul, citing the politics of race and noting that the party's executive committee had favored him Tuesday over the other two candidates, but the white party chair changed the rule. Janelle, thank you so much for that update. Wow. Dejima, you checked in. You said Democratic Party has largely been disastrous in supporting Black candidates, generally regardless of where they suffer from bigotry of low expectations. Is that something that you come across too, Doc? And Dejima, thank you so much. Do you think that's the case as well? Like there's this low expectation. Like we might hold them in high esteem, but the party themselves might say, they not as hot as y'all think he is or she is.
I think it's this idea of electability, which I think is a ridiculous concept, because if there's anything that Trump taught us, all of our ideas of what's electable sometimes need to go out the window. And I think that there's this kind of implicit thing that Democrats do where they're like, can a Black guy win in Wisconsin? I mean, he'll get the Black people, which again, if there's anything we should know about Black people, it's that we don't vote for people just because they're Black. Like we're probably the only demographic who doesn't do that.
Come on, man, say that.
White folks, if anything, like for example, this is why Republicans have tried so often to run Black folks, and then Black folks don't support them. This is what happened in Georgia. This is what happened. I'm from Maryland. You from Maryland. You remember, Alan Keyes.
Right.
I remember Bill Bennett once said that if Alan Keyes were white, he would have been president of the United States. So what does that tell us? That tells us that it's white people voting against Black candidates more than it is Black folks seeing a Black person and being like, oh, we need to support him because he's a brother.
Some people would say, but what about Obama?
Yeah, and that's my argument, is that people voted for Obama largely because they agreed with his politics. Now, again, did they also see the historic nature in his nomination? Absolutely. I mean, there was no question that Black people were excited about a potential Black president, but they didn't have that same excitement for other Black people that have run for president, including Alan Keyes. Yes, why didn't they vote for Alan Keyes? Because they didn't agree with him. So it's not just, hey, it's a Black face. It's a Black person that we feel is qualified, that we agree with. And that's how Black people vote. They vote their conscience more than color. It's white folks that vote color more than conscience sometimes. And particularly people who play up race and whiteness more. So my overall point is that this idea, I think Democrats still have this 1974 idea about what's electable, and saying, yeah, I don't know about a Black person in North Carolina. Yeah, North Carolina is only 17% Black or whatever. And therefore, we don't think, they're going to be able to get, white votes. And so we're not going to invest in that. And even though we lost the last race in North Carolina by 1,800 votes, and that was only because Cunningham was having affairs, and they came out literally right before Election Day.
Right.
Sherry Beasley, someone who had won statewide races before. That's the other thing. She had won, I think, as a judge statewide. So she actually could have won that election, and they did not invest enough money. Now, electability is different. That's a ridiculous concept. Now, are there some situations where the demographics don't favor Democrats, whether it's Black, white, or whatever? I think that's true. And that's my argument about Val Demings. As great as I think Val Demings is, Florida is just not the state that it once was, that Al Gore ran in. It's a DeSantis Florida. So I think that's a different situation. But Val Demings could have won in North Carolina. There's no question about that. They needed to turn people out. They needed to register new voters. They needed the advertising dollars, and they didn't get it. And they put everything into Pennsylvania, and it worked. They limped across the finish line with Fetterman, but had Beasley gotten what Fetterman got, I think she would have won. If Mandela Barnes had gotten what Fetterman got, they would have won. There's no question about it. I think people are still thinking Ohio and Florida are the same kinds of states, and they're just not. Now, I also lastly want to say that Tim Ryan, who's a white guy in Ohio, complained he didn't get enough support. So I think everybody was expecting a windfall of cash flow. I think that's the Democratic response is going to be everybody wants $7 million a week in order to run their campaigns. And
we just don't got it.
We just don't, we don't got it.
We don't got it. Let me just take a couple more, and I think this is interesting. Willie, my guy, Willie Frazier, you checked in. You posted something that I think needs to be said. You say if we go independent, we split the ticket, then we'll open. Then we'll out open enemies get the power to make our lives more miserable. Not living in fear, just weighing the cost benefit. Okay, very quickly. I understand that dynamic, but here's the thing. We can do two things at the same time. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, folks. We can continue to be on the Democratic Party boat, but then we really do have to start building our own boat. Like there are some of us in our community, in the Black community, hell, there's some of you that watch this show every day. Some group of you will be like, all right, let's build the Democratic Party. Let's reform it. Let's make it more appealing to Black voters. And some of you right here in the crew who'll be like, man, I'm building my own boat. We're going to build our own boat. And that's okay. And it might just require that like two-pronged strategy, that level of effort to get some things done. I'm not saying because we're not going to completely just stop voting for the Democratic Party. We understand the cost benefit. And I'm glad you pointed this out, Willie. We understand the cost benefit of it, but that's got to be an alternative. There's got to be something else. Because keep going. It's like this old saying, Dr. Jason Nichols, you keep doing the same thing, expect different results. What is that? Oh, man, they say that's the definition of, insanity.
Yeah.
We keep doing the same thing. We put out the same trope of, hey, but, we'll split the ticket. It's okay. And I hear you, Willie. But I'm going to just push back on that for you for a moment, brother, because at this point, what do we got to? I'm going Donald Trump. What you got to lose? I mean, we split the ticket and people are like, well, what if a Republican? Look, we've got, as a people in this country, we've gotten through some of the worst Republican or worst set of policies that has ever been put on man. We've gotten through the Nixon era. We've gotten through the Bush era. We've gotten through the Trump era.
But for Raji, let me push back and defend the brother.
All right, push back. Come on.
I think, do we want our kids to continue to have to go through that struggle? Do we want?
I don't want my children, brother, to feel like we didn't make an effort to push back on this, right? You feel like we could pave a new path. And again, this has to be strategic. We don't have to just jump ship, but there are a number of people in Black folks in this country that are willing to build that new ship. And then there are a number of people that are willing to stay and try to form the institution of the Democratic Party. We can do both. Right? But I don't want us to not do anything. We got to take action because we can't just sit around and not do anything. That's the only thing. Like either we keep getting we keep being in a space of insanity, expecting different results, even though we're doing the same thing, or we try something new. We walk out on faith. Yeah, we might take a hit in the beginning, but you're talking about down the road, trying to get that, building a new pathway or a political space down the road. I'm willing to take that chance at this point. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let me take this quick pause, and then I'm going to let you respond to that, Brother Jason, when we come right back. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot
tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Dr. Jason Nichols, talking about this idea of the Democratic Party, lackluster support of black folks. And I want to go back to what one of my crew members, Brother Willie Frazier, had to say, saying that this idea of splitting the ticket, that it would put us, it would probably do more harm than good for us to go completely independent. And I definitely understand that concern and sentiment. And Dr. Jason Nichols, I want to bring you back for you to kind of respond to that. I'm saying we could do two things at one time. We could build our own boat for our own political freedom, and at the same time work on the Democratic Party to reform the party to be more amenable to black candidates. I think we could do two at the same time. What's your take, though?
So the first thing that I want to say is, like, I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge that I believe it's the 117th Congress, the one before this one, 2020, was the most diverse Congress we've ever had in American history.
Mm-hmm.
We had, more black people elected, more gay people elected, more Latinos elected, Native Americans elected. So the idea that people of color aren't getting elected, I think is not necessarily correct. I think the way we did that was with voting rights. When voting got expanded in 2020, when you had lots of options to vote, many different ways of doing it, time periods were, 24 hours. That's when you got this huge black turnout, and you also got a lot of black and brown people elected. So I think one big issue, even though, institutional support and all that is important, part of the big issue is just expanding voting and expanding access to the ballot. I think in terms of splitting the ticket, I do understand both sides. I understand not operating in fear, but I also understand handing the wheels of government over to people who are hostile to black people, not just agnostic. But right now, we have people who are literally tweeting during the Super Bowl about why are they playing the black national anthem? Like, even though 75% of the people on the field were black, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, just hostility to anything like voting rights, to anything like police reform, to any of the things that black people are concerned about. So, do we want to hand things over to them to not only get the status quo, but maybe get worse, and to see things that we want, like fewer black women dying during childbirth? I agree. That, right?
I agree.
You look at what's happening in Mississippi right now.
Yeah.
Mississippi has the highest infant mortality in the country. And yet in the Mississippi Delta, they closed the last NICU. There's not even a NICU in the whole Mississippi Delta. So my thing is, and we know who's in the Delta. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know enough blues music to know who's in the Delta. So for me,
so real quick, Doc, because we got a couple of moments left. But I'm really trying to, and I'm really saying this out of the spirit of, we need to either put some fire under the asses of the Democratic Party institution, right?
Yeah.
Or we gotta figure out something else. I mean, look, like I said, this presidential campaign is 2024. That is literally next year, y'all. We're going to be going back to the polls to figure out who's going to lead this country from the Oval Office, right? And as of right now, it's either, we can go down the list of potential people, and that's whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But what is the voice? What is the voice of Black America? We can talk about voters, we can talk about police reform and stuff. We can talk about climate, we can talk about student loans and all of those things. But I'm talking about, where are the representatives? Where is the revolutionary voice that was going to take the condition of Black people in this country, which affects the condition of other people in this country, right? So you improve the quality of life for Black people in this country, you're improving the quality of life of Latinos, Asian Americans, Native Americans, other marginalized groups, and white people.
Mm-hmm.
But there has to be some infrastructure in place, something, because we can't just go along to get along, Doc. That's the thing. Like, I just, it's sad. So if we go to the polls, what do? We go back to the polls and tell people, hey, make sure y'all vote in 2024, because like your life depends on it. That's what we did in 2020. That's what we did in 2016. It's never, there's no better time to get voting. It's like, all right. Once we come out to vote, there's no guarantee we're going to get what we want. The two things that we've been calling for, we have not gotten: voting and police reform. I mean, this is two things. There are a litany of issues. We can talk to the government about a whole bunch of stuff, from mortgages to small business loans to all of this thing. But we just said, all right, get these two things right, and then we'll figure out where the relationship is. And we can't even get these two damn things right. We got a major case of police brutality, and it's still begging people to take on a policy. And I'm like, so what? I mean, what are we supposed to do?
So I think what you're saying is what Joe Biden would say. He's like, I think what he would say, and the reason I say that is because I think Joe Biden would say, look, what am I supposed to do when I only have a 51% a 51 to 49 advantage in the Senate? And in order to beat this filibuster, I need 60. You know what I mean? So what can I do here? I don't have the House of Representatives. And, when I did, they were passing police reform in the House. They were passing those laws. I was waiting for it to get to my desk. And I'll just say this, and this is more, if you listen to what I'm saying, this is more criticism of Democrats than praise. I think it's than praise for who I'm about to say. But when we look at progressive politics, the known moderate centrist, Joe Biden, is the most progressive president of my lifetime. Now, that's a sad thing. That's actually a sad statement.
It's very sad, man.
The guy who wrote the 1994, violent bill, is the guy who voted for the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which basically created mass incarceration, is the most progressive president of my lifetime. And arguably the best president of my lifetime. I mean, I think that says something about the presidency. So again, right now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure I would trust the presidency in anybody else's hands. You could say he's lost his fastball. He stumbles. He's old. This is the best I've ever gotten in my lifetime. It's not great, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? So, and I guess that's the low expectation thing. And it's a difficult trap that we Black people are stuck in, that Americans are stuck in. But I think it's where we are right now.
let me just share with you what my crew is saying to those statements you just made very quickly. Lana,
they said a lot of
Lana, my sister, you said, "Oh wow, Professor, my heart dropped behind that statement. The most overtly racist president is the best president."
Overtly racist? I think they've taking Obama out of it. I'm not so sure that he's the most overtly racist.
Right.
Is he overt? Has he been overtly racist? Yeah. Yeah.
And see, this is and we don't have time for this. And Lord, man, we don't have time for this. We had a conversation last week, very quickly. We had a conversation last week about religion. And I brought up the point that because of our experience and our sojourn here in this country, because of the slave trade and everything, white people have been the face of our oppression, but then at the same time, the face of our savior. And that's what we're finding today, even in the political space, outside of religion, that they have been the face of our opposition, and now they're now presenting themselves as the face of our savior. And I don't know how to process that at this moment. You know what I'm saying? Because I know we got brilliance coming from Black people, Black America. We got brilliance from the Latino space. We got progressive thinkers who thinks for the all and not just for the I. So I have to process that statement you just brought up. I have to really process it. I know a lot of people will have to process it as well. But if that's the case, then we're finding ourselves in a very, very unique situation, because now we really do have to figure out what is going to be our imprint that we put on this next election cycle in order for us to get what we said that we always wanted to get, which is some level of freedom, justice, and equality, some political liberation. We got to have a different conversation about this. Professor, I got to let you go, but brother, Damn, I wasn't expecting to talk about this the whole hour, but it is what it is. It's necessary. It's important. It's needed. So God willing, on next Monday, we're going to have to figure this something out, because this is going to be on my head for the rest of the week. Thank you so much, Dr. Jason.
Thank you, Faraji. I'll see you soon, brother.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to be checking in with my guy, Scotty, of Off Script TV. We're going to check in with my brother Michael and Hotep, and I just need some time to marinate. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Woo! Powerful hour there with Dr. Jason Nichols. If you haven't had a chance, make sure y'all go back and check it out. He dropped something for us to think about, and I got to process that. I'm going to be honest with you, folks. I got to process that, but there needs to be different conversation. 2024 is right around the corner, and to say there's got to be some different conversation. So if you didn't check out the first hour, make sure you do. Also, make sure you go do your due diligence and support us here at Black Star Network. If you enjoyed the conversation that we just had today and other conversations that we had, we want your support because we know that this thing called Black digital medium cannot work on its own. So your support matters, means everything to us. So make sure y'all go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com, blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app. And of course, we're streaming live on so many platforms, including our newest and largest distributor, Amazon News. You can check us out there on Amazon News if you have a Fire Stick TV, and on all other platforms. It makes nothing but sense. But take a look at this, Amazon Fire TV. Alexa, play news from Black Star Network. New, now streaming live 24/7. You can get all the news and news, black content and information, and all the latest activities happen around this country. Wherever there's Black folks, guess what's happening, folks? Black Star Network is going to be there. So again, we appreciate your support. All right, folks, let me go and let's switch gears from politics. Let's talk about sports. So we check in with my guy, Scotty from Off Script TV. Scotty, good to talk to you, sir. Good afternoon. How are you?
Man, chilling, man. You already know. Happy Monday, man.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Hey, Scotty, all right, let's talk about the Super Bowl. Some people would say it was the battle of the brothers.
That's what it was. It really was.
It really was. It was actually a great game, right? It was a solid football game. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs won. But what do you make of this? There was something like when I first watched when the game first started, it was like the NFL did not want to make this big deal that it was two Black quarterbacks. But it was kind of like subliminally they brought out Doug Williams, and the first Black quarterback to get into the Super Bowl and become a champ. And it was just like subtle, but it was like we don't want to kind of jump into that space. Do you think that was the right move, or what do you think of how the NFL presented the narrative around this game?
I feel like you had to touch it, but you don't want to be embarrassed by the NFL. What this like? It was like Super Bowl 57,
right?
Like a league that is 70% Black, and this is in over 60 years or 57 years, the first time to have two Black starting quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when you start doing like the math and all the analytics behind it, you're like, yo, this is like it should be impossible. It should have been impossible to have gone this much amount of time with the league being 70% brothers, that you couldn't find two Black guys to be a starting quarterback. But you got to touch it, but you didn't want to. It looks kind of like a black eye when you're like, damn, we went this far. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
Listen, at the end of the day, you got to call a spade, and we as Black people, I know we shouldn't. We're like, man, we've come so far to keep doing first, but once you see it, you're like, man, this is the first time two Black. So we just got to keep breaking barriers, man, and it just you got to keep growing from here. Because I remember when Lovie Smith and Tony Dungy, you know what I'm saying, when they were first two Black head coaches in the Super Bowl, you know what I'm saying, so to go against each other. So you just keep breaking first.
So what do you make of this ongoing conversation? And Scotty, I'm sure you probably seen it on your end. People were making a big deal about the race of Patrick Mahomes. It was like, and look, I was sitting around with some Eagle fans. I mean, it was all love. There was no hatred. We were just enjoying the game. But I saw on social media, bro, and this was the craziest thing to me. People were like, I'm going with the Black man. Fly. Eagles fly. Patrick Mahomes is Black. His father is a Black man.
All right.
So I saw this type of language from Black people. And it really spoke volumes to me, Scotty, because it's like, are we still caught up in the colorism? Like, first and foremost, Patrick Mahomes did not determine who his parents were going to be, right?
Fair. That's fair. That's fair. I give you that.
So we can't act like so. And we know that if you are of mixed race, that most likely you're going to quote unquote be inclined to your black side. Now I know folks who are mixed race. Some of them go to their white side or to their non-black side, right? But that's their choice. That's based upon a lot of different things and decisions and all of those things. But Patrick Mahomes never fared. He never said, "Oh, I'm not black," and all of those things. He sees himself as a black man. But this colorism was just like a little bit like concerning for me, bro, because it was like, what are y'all saying? A man is not black because he has a white wife and all of that? Like his mother, if his mother is white. And he has a great relationship with his mother, wouldn't it be natural for him to choose a woman? And I bring up Barack. If Barack Obama, who loves his mother to infinity, if he would have chosen a white woman to be his wife, can you really be mad at Barack Obama?
Listen, man.
Scotty, you told me to bring you on the show for these heavy conversations, and I'm doing it. So.
I'm loving it. I just don't know if your fans are going to agree with me, but at the same time,
come on, man, it's up.
What happens with when you're that color, when you're like a color like Patrick, you can play between the lines. You can play both.
But he doesn't want to necessarily play between the lines. I don't think he does.
But you don't know if in all. See, there's a difference between a Tiger Woods and a Patrick Mahomes. And right. Tiger Woods really couldn't play in between the lines because he's just a little dark. Man, listen, there are shades to this, okay? Like, we might not want to act like it isn't, but there's shades that it's like Patrick Mahomes, if you did not know his dad was black, you would take him as a curly-haired white boy. Let's not play
do it. Not me, not necessarily.
Quickly, very quickly. If I did not listen, when I first saw Patrick Mahomes, I didn't know his dad was black. I just thought he was a curly-haired white boy. If I'm being
actually, and this is the honest to God truth, Scotty. I thought he was a light-skinned. I just thought he was a light-skinned dude.
Listen, but you're able to it's not Patrick Mahomes' fault, but we as it's not his fault. You know what I'm saying? But we as even me, I'm of the darker skin. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at people like that, you're like, man. You guys can play between the lines that us as a darker fair skin, we cannot do. And we all know that colorism goes beyond just black people. It also goes about acceptance of white people, right? Of how, you can accept somebody who's black, but just a little fairer of the skin because you're like, oh, he's not really that black. I mean, he is black, but he's not really that black. You know what I'm saying? It ain't Michael Vick. You know what I'm saying? It ain't
right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. And the reason that Barack Obama, even with a white mama, his name put him in that category. Barack Obama, listen, when he walked into an interview, there was no question.
Well, that's why he called himself, and he went through that period where he called himself Barry.
You see what I'm saying?
Because he was still trying to figure his trying to get his identity together. So he would call himself Barry. But to your point, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So it's like you're not allowed to play with those aspects in between the lines like a fair color skin. Like people think that people gravitate towards Steph Curry and both his parents black. Let's be real. You know what I'm saying? But he's just a fair skin. So you're like, he's more acceptable than, some people would say than a LeBron James or another darker skinned player. So that could be that they feel is better, but he's more acceptable. That's why they push him on more platforms. That's why they put him on more things. So, listen.
Do you think that the NFL, quote unquote, has leaned into that, going to that direction and say, okay, we're gonna prop up Patrick Mahomes because they're both they're both highly talented brothers, right? In the quarterback position.
I do think they do but it really. The NFL was lucky enough that Patrick Mahomes is that guy. Like, let's not play around. Like, I don't want to take nothing away from his ability. He that dude. So it really fit. They got it like a gym. He light skinned. He got a white wife. He can pass as a white man. And he got the skills to back it up. And black people love him because we're like, hey, man, the black delegation, we're going to take him as a black brother because he got a black daddy. So he gets to touch a lot of lines, but the NFL is like, man, this is perfect because he's light enough to not push away like advertisers or if they don't like, the darker skin kind of player. Because if we're being honest, Jalen Hurts is another perfect. He could be what Patrick Mahomes is, but I just think because he's a little darker, he's not. I'm telling you, because he's not as acceptable. But if you really, Jalen Hurts has a really clean cut look. He don't talk trash. He does his job. He does it well. He has a great marketing team. He has the first black woman agent he has a great storyline, all black woman media. But when you have all that black excellence, it's hard for the NFL to get behind that because they're like, when we bring him on, we bring in black excellence with him. And if I'm being honest, when you bring Patrick Mahomes on, you're not bringing black excellence with him. I know it might sound bad, but he gets to play both sides of the fence, and Jalen Hurts doesn't do that. He's black day in, day out. It's just hard to really touch on, but I see where you're going with it. I think it's a colorism thing, but I don't want to just put like black people have colorism. White people love white people love colorism.
No, I'm just saying, I thought it was interesting. It's an interesting culture. And I want to bring in very quickly, then we take our next pause, Brother Michael and Hotep. Brother Michael, you talk about this, if we look at the racism piece, the level of colorism piece, I just found it to be interesting because I was looking on social media and it, I wanted to see, I like Kansas City. You know what I mean? I like Kansas City a lot. I think Patrick Mahomes he embodies the next generation of black quarterbacks in the league. But people were making it seem like we shouldn't be proud of both brothers. These are two young black men at the top of their game. And folks like, well, I'm going with the black man from Philly because he's from Philly. He represents a black. Like, when did we get out of that? Brother Michael, what's your take?
Well, yes, we still suffer from colorism. How's everybody doing? Thanks for having me back, Faraji. Yes, we still suffer from colorism. Yes, we still suffer from ignorance. And if we're saying that Patrick Mahomes is not black because he's biracial, we have to say Colin Kaepernick is not black. He's biracial as well. We have to say Frederick Douglass was not black because he was biracial. We have to say somebody like Bob Marley. Bob Marley was biracial also. So it's like, you have to look. I think some people are making comments and don't follow football. And I don't follow football. I haven't watched the NFL game since Colin Kaepernick left the league in 2017. I didn't watch the Super Bowl, didn't watch the halftime show. I already told people I wasn't watching. I told Roland Martin this Friday. But when you have something like the Super Bowl, and it was viewed probably by about 192 million people, that was the estimation from National Retail Federation. It's about 192 million people who were going to watch the game. It draws in people who normally would not pay attention to Patrick Mahomes, didn't know who he was before the game yesterday or anything like that. So, people bring to these conversations a lot of times their own hangups, etc. But I'm more concerned about the attack by people on the right wing, like Lauren Boebert, attacking the Black national anthem being performed, saying there was one national anthem. But a lot of people don't know Francis Scott Key, who wrote the white national anthem, what I call the Star Spangled Banner. He was a white supremacist slave owner who thought that African people were mentally inferior and used his position as district attorney in Washington, D.C. to attack abolitionists. So it's like our priorities are not in order when we say things like that.
I think, and we got to take a quick pause, and folks, I want y'all to chime in as we're talking to my brother Scotty, my brother Michael, and Hotep. But I think that it just goes to show you, Scotty, that as much as we like to think that we are, knowledgeable, as much as we like to think that we have an understanding of some very, very deep issues, we really don't. We really don't. Like we are still very immature, and I'm not saying that to insult. I'm saying we're still on the baby level of understanding the complexities of race. We're still kind of working from a space of just emotion versus looking at facts and reasoning. We should take very quickly.
I mean, I love what Brother Mark said, about the different people who are biracial and things like that. But like, when I say you're playing the fence, it's like, you know, some people want you. I hated to see Colin Kaepernick, you know, lose what he stood for something and lost it.
Right.
But you could be like, you know, black people who are like, you know, like darker people, like, yo, I respect that because he identifies with. We feel like he identifies with the black side, like yo, yeah.
Yes, exactly. He does.
You know what I'm saying? Because he could have been cool with just saying, you know what, I feel this way, but I won't stand on it. But he could move like that, even if he didn't. You know what I'm saying? So, but I get it. I get it, man. It's very deep though. Like you said, Faraji, it's so deep, and we're at the tipping point because, you know, for us as black people, I mean, you know, just in general, color, whatever, you know, we want things to look a certain way, and we want it to come out a certain way, and we want it to be done a certain way. And sometimes it doesn't always look the way we want to, and we kind of push back on it.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue the conversation with Scotty and Brother Michael and Hotep. And, of course, with you. Make sure you post your comments in the chat. Streaming live on YouTube, blackstarnetwork.com, Facebook, as well as we are definitely streaming live on Amazon News. Stay with us. More conversation about the Super Bowl up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking to Brother Big from Offscript TV. Make sure y'all check him out on Facebook and YouTube and all social media platforms as he continues to give us the latest in the sports world. And I got my Brother Michael and Hotep, who serves as the host of the African History Network podcast show. You can check him out on AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We got Brother Michael. I see you. Okay.
Here,
right, cool.
I gotta run.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, okay. Oh, you on the phone? Okay, I thought you were trying to get.
Sorry, man. But go ahead. What was your question?
Like Jay.
No, okay. All right. So I see Scotty like trying to.
I'm sorry.
But check it. Look, so I wanted to talk about this because there is this continuation of colorism that we're seeing, and more importantly, you know, how to have a conversation about race in this country. And it seems to me, Brother Michael, that now race has become so, the talk around race has become much more frequent in this country around everything than I've probably seen in the past 10 to 15 years. That everything is through the lens of race. And I know last week I was having a conversation with some of my culture crew, and as much as Black folks would like to be seen, and I said this, and I'm just got to say this again, as much as we would like to be seen for our merits, our talents, our skills, our authentic selves being brought to the room or to the table, we're always going to be looked at through the lens of race because of the very essence and nature of this system that we are part of, right? And even though we may not want that to be the case, when we look at the statements about Idris Elba, the actor who said, hey, I don't refer to myself as a Black actor anymore because I don't want to be typecast. Like, that's all well and good for us to be at a place of evolution on an individual level, but that doesn't reflect the institutional view of how people see us. When you're talking about the NFL, what's the institutional view of Black football players? When you're talking about Hollywood, what's the institutional view? And it just seems like there still needs to be some push on changing the institutional view. It's all right that if you are an evolved individual, that you don't see race. Oh, I don't refer to myself as this. Oh, no, I'm no, but the institutions and the systems that we are part of still see you that way.
Yeah, so it's important to make a distinction between race and racism. Race is the stratification of humanity based upon hair texture, places of origin, skin complexion, phenotype, etc. That's race. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy, which is designed to preserve genetic white survival. Racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, benefits, privileges, land, access to education, access to opportunity, media, jobs, healthcare, etc. And they use that to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. So race is one thing. Race is just classification. Racism is a power structure designed to preserve genetic white survival and maldistribute wealth, power, and resources into the hands of Europeans. So with Idris Elba, I can understand him saying he's not confused. He knows he's a Black man, right? But when we talk about actors, he wants to be looked at as an actor as opposed to his race first. I can understand.
I get that.
Yeah, I can understand that.
People do that in the sports world, right? We can say we can say that some of our athletes want to be seen as great athletes and not great Black athletes.
Right. Now, when we talk about the NFL, it's really important for us to understand this, right? Because there are 32 teams in the NFL, no Black majority ownership. The league is 68% to 70% African-American. You have 2 or 3 African-American head coaches, okay? So what you're dealing with is racism coming from a power structure in the NFL, and you have the microcosm reflecting the macrocosm. And you have the average career in the NFL is 3.5 to 3.6 years. And then there was just a study from Boston University that showed out of 376 deceased brains analyzed, 91.7% had chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Okay, so you have to. So what we're looking at is racism within the NFL, and at the same time, Colin Kaepernick is still banned from the NFL, who wanted to bring attention to racism in the macrocosm. Okay,
all right, let me get my guy, and I appreciate you for pointing that out, and I'm glad that you pointed that out. Scotty, what's your take on that, bro?
I don't. Maybe it's just me, but you being considered, if we go back and forth with it, right? If you being considered a Black actor is typecasting yourself, that doesn't make any sense to me, because it doesn't. Just because you consider yourself a Black actor doesn't mean you're not great. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because you consider you're a Black actor doesn't mean you can't play multiple roles, right? Yeah. But you gotta represent what you are. Like at the end of the day, just to be considered, you don't have the luxury just to be considered an actor. We understand what the dichotomy is, because as you said, the social structure does not just see you as an actor. Now, your greatness can outshadow your color to be like, we can put him anywhere, but at the end of the day, you're still a brother in a film. You know what I'm saying? That just is what it is. And I love what Brother Michael said about, you know what I'm saying, at the power structure of the NFL is dictating everything else below it. It's literally a plantation. Like, they own it, they run it however they want it, and then they know that anytime one of the one of the workers rise up, well, we'll just cut him out and we'll fill him in with somebody else, because we know that other brothers look at this as so much as an opportunity that they're willing to be quiet to get the check, no matter how long that is. If it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, they will play the role in the back, get the money, and then once they get the money after 7 or 8 years, then they'll become an advocate about change. But then you weren't the advocate when you was playing. Now you set up for life. You done took everything that they done given you, and now you want to be an advocate? That, you know what I'm saying? And now you telling
hey,
other
bro, hey, Scotty.
Come on, man.
Come on. Hey, look, hey, Scotty, let me tell you, that is one of the most, that point right there, brother, is one of the things I often push back on. You can't just be like, all right, I'm going to be conscious and I'm going to ride it out for 7, 8 years, like you said, and then be conscious afterwards. It's like you're doing yourself a disservice, right? Like, I get it. Right. I know everybody got to eat, right? Everybody got to eat. But let's keep it real. Like, what NFL players are being paid, that's 3-4 lifetimes. $200 million. I mean, come on, man. Like, you know, we acting like we talking about $100,000 here. We talking about 50 grand, like everybody got to eat. $200 million, $125 million, $130 million. Like, how much are you eating, bro? Like, let's put this in proper perspective. So I feel that. Look, I want to bring our attention to another element of this colorism race conversation, because during yesterday's game, Chris Berman of ESPN, who is known to have said and have done some racist things, right? Back in 2016, Jamel Hill described having an interaction or a message from him where he said some very, racist and very disparaging remarks as a woman about her when she was departing from ESPN at that time. So Chris Berman came out. He was talking about the fact that you got these two black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, and I just want to play the rest of what he had to say. Take a listen, folks.
But also, of course, two African-American quarterbacks starting against each other in the Super Bowl for the first time. Fittingly, February 12th is Abe Lincoln's birthday. Here we go with the highlights in case you missed.
You can't make this stuff up, bro. You can't make this stuff up, man.
The man said fittingly February 12th is Abe Lincoln's birthday. Like,
right.
Hey, thank him for these two black quarterbacks for playing in the NFL. Because if it wasn't for Abe Lincoln, and you know what he did for them black people.
You can't make this stuff up, bro.
Who the hell?
Right.
This first, Scott, Michael, I know you want to unload, brother.
No, please give it to Brother Mike. I know he's about to stop. I will happily sit back. And listen.
Yeah, it seemed like this was a slight, and he's doing this in Black History Month also. Okay,
come on.
So he's saying this during Black History Month. Now, just so people understand, the reason why Black History Month was originally the second week of February as Negro History Week was partly because the second week in February contained Abraham Lincoln's birthday. Dr. Carter G. Woodson created this because African Americans were already having celebrations in our communities celebrating Abraham Lincoln's birthday, and then Frederick Douglass' assumed birthday is February 14th. So it's because of those two birthdays and celebrations were already taking place in our communities. This is why Dr. Carter G. Woodson inserted the new cultural holiday within the second week of February. So it appears what he's trying to say is, well, if it hadn't been for Lincoln, who, freed the slaves, we wouldn't have these two black quarterbacks. But that's a misunderstanding of the Civil War. African Americans took up arms and we freed ourselves. Okay, we fought in there's almost 200,000 of us that fought in the Union Army and the Navy, and they let African Americans fight on behalf of the Union when their backs were against the wall and they were being beaten by the South or by the Confederacy. And even with the Emancipation Proclamation, even though it did not free the enslaved Africans, because the Union had no authority to dictate to the Confederacy what they could do, it was a military strategy designed to bring the South back into the Union and rob the South of their largest asset, which were the enslaved Africans. They had about 3 million of them or so in the Confederate States of America, the CSA, the Confederacy. And the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation was September 22nd, 1862, the year before. And it stated that if those areas in rebellion, those territories in rebellion did not come back into the Union by January 1st, 1863, they will be allowed to keep their slaves. Now, it exempted Maryland, Missouri, Kentucky, and Delaware, the border states. They were allowed to keep their slaves, and Maryland did not abolish slavery until November 1st, 1864. So almost 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. So a lot of this is mythology surrounding Lincoln, okay? Lincoln was not an abolitionist.
Here's the thing, Brother Michael.
Yeah.
What was the point?
That was a slight. That was an attack. That was an attack on the two black quarterbacks to take away from that, to say, wait, okay, if it had not been for Lincoln, you wouldn't have these two black quarterbacks. He's trying to undermine the intention, and at the same time, you got to look and say, okay, he's saying something like that. You know what? I wonder what he would say about Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick is still being whiteballed from the league. Even though he got a settlement, Kaepernick is still being whiteballed from the league.
Here's the point, and here's the point, Scotty, because we got a couple of moments left, and here's the point, because I think that a lot of times, especially in the sports, right, we believe that white commentators, right, white game callers, that they are quote unquote liberal, progressive, because sports makes us feel as if, you know, we're all on the same page, that nothing unites the American people like sports. So when we really start to hear their real views, right, like this is how they really think, then we all get offended. And so I'm bringing this out because people are like, yo, Chris Berman really got a problem. He's really a racist underneath of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we address that, Scotty?
Listen, man, at the end of the day, it's the peers of one another calling them out, right? Or peer co-workers, right? So it's the Stephen A. Smiths, it's the Ryan Clarks, it's the Marcus Spears, it's all those black commentators as well, even his co-host. The one that the black man that always does with Chris Berman. Yo, you gotta hold this Bama accountable. Like, it's like, see, it's too many pacifists for me, right? Oh, it was a slip of the tongue. Oh, he didn't mean it like that. No, he meant it how he said it. Now, at the end of the day, how I take it, that's perception. That's how I took it. If he never says it, there's nothing to take. You get what I'm saying? So to me, at the end of the day, his co-workers, his white and black, have to hold him accountable. His bosses, 9 times out of 10 that are white, got to hold him accountable. And then as well as the league, the NFL, this is part of your product, right? You got these people talking on your product. You have a whole banner in the back of the end zone talking about end racism. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. Like,
that's nonsense.
You get what I'm saying?
Hey, Scotty, real quick. I wonder what Shannon going to say.
I don't think I watched him this morning. I don't think he caught it. But he better say something. Somebody better say something.
But you gotta.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
What you say, bro, Michael?
I wonder what Jay-Z's gonna say. Remember, Jay-Z was co-opted by the NFL back in September 2019, and I told people I did a YouTube video September 2nd, 2019. I told people that they brought Jay-Z in, gave him this deal with the NFL to get the top black acts because he put the word out prior to that not to perform at the Super Bowl. Okay, so a lot of top black acts didn't perform. In that year that they had Maroon 5 perform, they had terrible ratings. All right, and then I said they're gonna be able to, because of Jay-Z, he's gonna make it all right for the top black acts to perform. Who performed yesterday? Rihanna. I told people what's gonna happen. So I wonder what Jay-Z's gonna say. Because Jay-Z said the deal, he said the deal with the NFL, he said that's the next step in the social justice movement. Talking about Colin Kaepernick, he said this is the next step. You can't determine what the next step is because you weren't involved in it in the first place.
I'm riding with you on this. I'm riding with Scotty on this. if black commentators don't say something, right? Black Twitter is already saying stuff, but if black commentators don't say something, I ain't talking about Jason Whitlock.
Right. Oh no.
I'm talking about
that's white supremacy through ventriloquism, Jason Whitlock. Right there, that Negro.
Black commentators, right? And look, the crazy part is we don't have that many strong black sports commentators on these mainstream programs. I look, trust and believe, I listen.
Right.
Like I listen to Nate Burleson, I listen to Michael Strahan, I listen to Shannon. You know what I'm saying? Like who's really talking? The culture. You feel what I'm saying?
They all get paid by white people, man. So they can only get so much. They can only go so far.
They only could go so far. But that's why I said, let me hear what Shannon got to say. Because I know Shannon, he can write his own ticket anywhere at this point, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm with Scotty on this. Like, if you don't say something, this is ridiculous. You had this dude literally say Abe Lincoln's birthday is today when you talking about two black quarterbacks. Like, that is, if that don't...
Asinine, bro. Asinine.
That feeds into the mythology.
That is, and I mean, not the 77% black. How many black people still watch the NFL, right? How many black people still watch? Out of 192 million, what's the breakdown of the demographics? How many women still watch the NFL?
They were showing a watch party in Ghana. They were showing
it's international. It's international.
Listen,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, brother Mike. Like they showed that it was, oh, look at this watch party and this party. I'm like, so it's
you don't get it right, bro.
Come on, man.
I talked to a sports writer from Forbes magazine, from Forbes.com last week, and this is an older brother. He's been a writer for sports for 40 years. He's told me they haven't gotten it right. And he said the reason they haven't gotten it right is because they don't want to get it right.
Right, exactly.
It's not that they can't. It's not that they don't have the brilliance. It's not that they don't have the black men and black women to be behind the scenes to help shape this news. They don't want to get it right. There's a story right now, and I'm sure, bro, Michael, you've seen it too. Scotty, I'm sure you probably talked about it. There's a story right now where the NFL is on record as being as aggressively denying claims to NFL veterans who need disability and other medical coverage.
Yep.
Men who have put their lives out on the line, men who have given their bodies to the game, and the NFL is still aggressively denying them health care claims and coverage and insurance coverage.
Real quick, you can probably talk about this sometime next time. With the Jim Trotter for 2 years straight has talked about the diversity within the higher levels of media in the NFL and why they have not seen black people and black commentators in the C-level executives in the media room. He's asked the commissioner for 2 years running at the NFL Media Day. Go check that out. I'm telling you, Jim Trotter, what is Goodell? What is? Oh, I don't really touch the media room. Bama, you are the commissioner of the NFL. What you mean you don't touch the NFL? What do you mean you don't touch media? That don't even make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, keep in mind he works for the owners though also. So
but see, that's what I'm saying.
He does their bidding. He does the owner's bidding.
That's it. But at the end of the day, you're right. But at the end of the day, like they just it doesn't fit. Look, we gotta take a quick pause. Hey, brother Scotty, I appreciate you as always. Folks, make sure y'all subscribe to Offscript TV on YouTube and on all social media platforms. My man Scotty is always bringing the heat. Truly, truly appreciate this brother and his insight. And every time we talk sports, I always think about my brother. And I'm bringing him in on all of these conversations. And make sure y'all follow him on all social media strategy platforms. Hey, brother Scotty, thank you so much for checking in today.
Hey, anytime for Roger. Thank you, brother Mike.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks, Scotty.
Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let me give you an update on the latest coming out of Florida and what College Board is saying as they respond to Governor DeSantis and this whole AP African American Studies problem. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. For our final conversation today, I wanted to bring another development in this story about the AP African American courses, the courses that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida has been pushing against, has been fighting against in our effort, in our continuing coverage of this story of fighting against history, something that we're seeing out of Florida and some other states as the discussion about Black history and the value of Black history and some of the contents of Black history curriculums continue to be questioned. Now, College Board, this is the organization that's behind setting the curriculum for a number of school districts across the country. They have responded to what Governor DeSantis is doing, and they have also apologized for not doing their due diligence in a timely manner. They have put out a statement, and part of their statement is that they're saying that they are accusing, for example, the educational department in Florida of slander and spreading misinformation about the nature of the courses. The College Board also admitted, folks, that it made mistakes in the rollout of the course framework that are being exploited. Now, let me just share with you just a quick tidbit of the statement that they share on their website. Y'all can check them out at College Board as well. This is the group, again, that's responsible for the testing and for the curriculum development for schools across the country. Let me share this with you very quickly. Let's go to what College Board had to say. They said, part of their statement, they said there's always debate about the content of a new AP course. That is good and healthy. These courses matter, but the dialogue surrounding AP African American Studies has moved from healthy debate to misinformation. And they're saying that they are finally willing to speak out against what we have been seeing. I want to bring Brother Michael into this. Brother Michael, you've been kind of keeping up on this story and the latest development of this. What you see from College Board? College Board is trying to clear the air, as they said in their statement. They're trying to do their due diligence to let people know, hey, we apologize for the rollout, but what y'all been hearing is not actually the case. There is a lot more details to our putting up these AP courses. There's a lot more to teaching Black history than what Governor DeSantis and other folks have been saying. What's your take on this, bro?
Yeah, I think I read the article from CNN, and I've been following this. I saw the statements from the Florida Board of Education. There's a good article from the New York Times from February 9th, 2023, which would have been Thursday, entitled "Florida Officials Had Repeated Contact with College Board Over African American Studies." So the College Board is saying that the changes that they made was not because of pressure from the Florida Department of Education. And let me see, the College Board statement comes after the Florida Department of Education asserted that AP African American Studies courses lack educational value and violate state law, etc. Now they dispute that it lacks educational value. I would argue that a lot of the media coverage, including in Black media, is misguided on this, because this is about 6 topics out of about 100 topics, and the 234-page framework is online. Around 94%, 90% of it is still there. And my argument is that we should be organizing study groups in our communities, in our churches, etc., to teach our people outside of the AP course because only a small percentage, the majority of high school students don't take advanced placement courses. Just so people understand, the majority of high school students do not take advanced placement courses. These are courses that they'll take and get college credit for. If you look at, and I put the link here in the chat, I don't know if y'all could bring this up. I put the link to the actual 234 page framework. Okay, they deal with topics such as introduction to African American studies, the strength and complexity of early African studies, early West African empires, early African kingdoms and city-states, early Africa and global politics. Then they deal with the transatlantic slave trade and different aspects of it. And then what they said that was taken out that Florida is trying to take credit for, that's made as a research project. Mm-hmm. So those topics are still in there as a research project. My thing, see, a lot of this, Faraji, boils down, and I see the coverage on MSNBC and Joanne Reed and things like this. And 80% of the coverage in media, including Black media, is not on the content that's still left in the framework and it's free for people to read the actual 234-page document. It's on the 6 topics that Florida is taking credit of getting taken out as like mandatory topics. Now, a lot of this boils down to we only want something dealing with our history when white people tell us we can't have it. Right. Because the overwhelming majority that's still left in there, we're not talking about that. And that's a problem for me as a historian.
And then, you know what, very quickly, I mean, they mentioned this in their statement, Brother Michael. College Board said this is like number 3 of the top things they do wanted to clear the air about. They said we should have made clear that contemporary events like the Black Lives Matter movement, reparations, and mass incarceration were optional topics in the pilot course.
Yes.
Our lack of clarity allowed the narrative to arise that political forces had downgraded the role of these contemporary movements and debates in the AP class. The actual pilot course materials teachers used were completed on April 29th of 2022, far prior to any pushback. In these pilot materials, teachers were told to pick only one such topic. This topic could be assigned after the exam since it didn't count and would have no impact on the student's AP score.
Yeah, and see, that yes, they rolled it out incorrectly, but at the same time, it's like if you actually understand the value of the information that's in this AP course, we should be, and this is Black History Month at the same time, we should be downloading we should be downloading the framework, and you can just Google AP African American History Course Framework. It comes up and it's free. So once again, a lot of this has to do with the fact that a lot of people want to complain and only want something when white people tell us we can't have it. But the majority of the content that's still in here, we're not going to study, and we should be studying it. And then now this plays into DeSantis and the Florida Board of Education. Is believed that Ron DeSantis wants to run for president. Part of his platform is anti-wokeness and these and this the white grievance, okay, and these culture wars that they're fighting. When we go study our history, we understand how to fight against these culture wars and deal with people like Ron DeSantis. And as I explained to African Americans in 2018, when they said that Andrew Gillum, who was running against Ron DeSantis, Andrew Gillum didn't have a Black agenda, all this, I told them Ron DeSantis has a Black agenda. He has an anti-Black agenda. And an anti-Black agenda is worse than not having a Black agenda. And secondly, a Black agenda is not what politicians give us. That's what we create, understanding history, law, politics, and economics. And that's what we give them. We have the whole thing backwards.
So at this point, Brother Michael, like with College Board, working to clear the air, they're given, and folks, I would say that you go to College Board's website to see the full story. Collegeboard.org, collegeboard.org. You can see the full statement. It's a lengthy statement, but they will break down as to what their intentions were, what they wanted to make clear, and so much more.
But not only that, Faraj, you can download the 234-page framework.
You can download it.
You can download it.
Right.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I think you made an excellent point by saying that we're focused on the 6 or 7 topics that DeSantis wants to remove, and not really looking at the other topics that to make sure that they stay intact and not feed into the cultural political war that we see. Right.
Well, not only that, we should be forming study groups in our communities to deal with the entirety of the framework and the other elements that we want in there as well. That are made a research project.
That's a great point. So we got like a minute left, but what do we expect next? What should be the next step from this? Now that College Board put their statement out, they're responding to things. What should be the next step, brother? Next step should be enrolling our children in the class. How many people have you heard say, "I'm going to enroll my children in the class"? Now, Ben Crump is an attorney. He's representing 3 African American students that I know of. They're going to file a lawsuit possibly against the Florida Department of Education because the Department of Education is banning that AP course in Florida high schools. But there should be a waiting list. The system to register Black students for this class should crash like Ticketmaster crashed trying to get Taylor Swift tickets. Or Beyonce
tickets. Okay? There should be so many people trying to get into that class that they have to hire more teachers to open it up. Okay? So a lot of this, man, is once again, white people, because I guarantee you if when they first announced this course was going to take place, I read about it and posted about it back in 2022. There was not this type of furor over it. Black people weren't turning cartwheels over that. But now the white man says you can't have this. Now all of a sudden they want it, and most of them wouldn't read this goddamn thing in the first place. Come on. Most of them, I guarantee you, most of them not going to go download this free 234-page framework so they can educate themselves. But they want to complain because the white man said you can't have it. You can't slick a can of oil. Gang recognizes gang. Come on.
I'm going to have to end it right there.
Yep.
I'm going to have to end it right there.
AfricanHistoryNetwork.com because we got free Black History Month lecture Saturday, 12 noon to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, taught by me, historian, study history 32 years, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Yep, Black resistance movements. And if you missed the one I just did Saturday, February 11th, you can still register for that. Watch that one. We did 2 hours. And then my class number 1 of my 12-week online course started up on February 11th as well. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding Transatlantic Slave Trade. You can register for that also.
There it is, Brother Mike.
AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Thank you, Brother Faraji.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate the love, peace, passion, and the history, bro. Peace. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank y'all for tuning in this Monday afternoon, Monday evening. I truly appreciate that. Make sure y'all support the African History Network. Check them out at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Make sure y'all support us here at Black Star Network. Go to BlackStarNetwork.com. Make sure you download the app on all of your devices. And most importantly, continue to give to support us because every dollar and cent matters to us. And make sure that you follow us on all social media platforms so we can continue to educate so many people about not just the fact that Black media is here, but we have these conversations in an unfiltered, unapologetic way. So go to Black Star Network today and do your due diligence and support us. And also follow us on all social media at Black Star Network on IG and Twitter, and follow yours truly, me, Faraji Muhammad, your host, your brother. Check me out on social media at The Real Faraji on IG and Faraji on Twitter. I'd love to connect with you. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered, RMU. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Thank you, Culture Crew. Talk to you soon. Peace.